Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Two Cool Caregivers. I am Erica.
And I'm Jacquelyn.
And we are
Two Cool Caregivers. That didn't work.
No, it worked. No, that was perfect.
Oh, it's fine. We're not doing that again.
I'm Erica. She's Jacquelyn. We have about 8 years of full-time dementia caregiving experience between the two of us. And we're also really cool people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you want to learn about care from the perspective of two young folks in society, we're the ones that you should listen to.
So we are making this podcast for the millions of young caregivers who don't want to go through this alone.
And y'all, I stutter, by the way, so I'm just going to say that because I'm about to stutter right now. Each episode, we will dive into different facets of caregiving, problem solve, talk shit, get educated, and have fun with us.
Woo! And our first topic is our favorite topic.
Me and you, girl.
So Jacquelyn, do you want to start? Tell me, how did your dementia caregiving experience all start?
Yeah. So the actual care started when I was about 22. I moved to Atlanta for one summer to take care of my dad's mom. I took care of her for one summer. It started and it stopped. And that was like literally my first time. And that introduced me to like how to take. Something that I have to also tell everyone here is that I stutter. I have a speech impediment. And so you will hear that. And that's all I'm gonna say. So that was like when care, or like me knowing what care meant.
And was that your first experience seeing dementia?
Yes,
firsthand?
But she was sort of at the point where she was bedbound, didn't really like know anyone. And so
you didn't get the full experience.
All of the stuff that I dealt with my mom. Right.
So when did you start becoming your mom's caregiver? Because I know that was your primary role for years and years.
So that happened in 2016. I was actually living in New York City at the time. I got a phone call while I was on the subway, and it was my mom's friend saying that something is wrong with your mom and you need to fly home. And I was like, something is wrong with my mom.
What does that mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And so 4 days later, I ended up flying home, and I thought that it would be some sort of like short visit. Turns out that I'm still here.
And 7 years later, baby.
7 years later, I'm still in this house. But
yeah, so you flew there just assuming that it was going to be like going to stay for until mom's better.
Right. And so long story short, we found out that there was a carbon monoxide leak in the furnace of the home that my grandmother and my mom purchased. So they bought it in like 2002, mind you, from someone who specifically requested that she not get a home
inspection.
Yeah. And so she like wanted it so badly, and she decided not to get a home inspection, which is why both my grandmother and my mom started showing signs at the same time. Yeah. And so I ended up moving home. I'm an only child, and I moved home to take care of my grandmother and my mother. And it has been a doozy. We will talk so much more.
It has been a doozy. Yeah. It's really hard to summarize. I feel like, as far as I'm concerned, being a dementia caregiver is the most complicated experience any human being could ever have. Summarizing it in 2 minutes is pretty difficult, but we're going to do our best every episode to go through it with you slowly.
How did your intro to being a dementia caregiver happen?
Dramatically and sadly and suddenly. Yeah, my caregiver journey started, I would say, about as dramatically as humanly possible. So my mom's dementia journey has been a very long one. She was formerly diagnosed back in 2017, but as all caregivers know, the diagnosis is usually years and years after the little signs start popping up. So it had been a few years of mom's acting a little different, until it got to the point where, okay, let's take mom to a neurologist. Okay, mom has advanced onset Alzheimer's. So my dad was her primary caregiver when that was happening. They lived together. He took care of her definitely during her I would say most difficult phases, her angry phases, the violent phases, the loud phases. So it was about a month into the pandemic. So it was back when everyone was still kind of like in vacation mode, thinking we're going to go back to work in a few weeks. So I was in mentally, spiritually, physically, I was at the best point of my life, working from home, loving my life.
It always happens when things are like lining up exactly how you want
things
it.
got lined up. Yeah. So during that time, I would definitely identify as a part-time caregiver. I would go back to my parents' house, help my dad out, hang out with my mom, take her out to get her hair done, take her out to dinner when I could. Weekends, I was working, so on my own schedule. So I would definitely classify myself as a part-time caregiver. So a month or so into the pandemic, my dad called me just like, and I always knew that it was a really heavy burden on him emotionally, physically.
Sure.
And he called me and he was just like in tears, just like, I can't do this anymore. He's never one to ask for help. He's never been one to ask for help. And it was the closest he had ever gotten without actually asking me for help. Around that same time, my dad gave me an update from my mom's former doctor, former for a reason, as you will understand shortly, who had told my dad that my mom had maybe a year, before she probably succumbed to Alzheimer's disease and passed away.
When was
this? Was 2.5 years ago. So
okay,
quick check-in. She's great. Has a new neurologist and primary care doctor. Well, more on that later. So when I got that phone call, I went home, packed my stuff. Presumably, like you said, I was just going to stay for a little bit until things kind of got better. The plan was go back to my parents' house, stay there, help my dad, help his anxiety, let him get some free time. So I was there at my parents' house for 2 days before my dad unexpectedly passed away. So that
2 days?
2 days, 1.5, if I'm being honest.
How did it pass, if it's okay?
No, of course. And honestly, in retrospect, like, thank God I was there, because if I had not been, I can't even imagine how much worse it would have been with my mom. But so woke up like every other morning, went downstairs, heard the shower going, but the door was closed, assumed he was in there. And I noticed that my mom kept knocking on the door, but nothing was happening. I opened the door. You could put the pieces together. And it's so hard to encapsulate the feelings of that day, because I experienced quite literally every emotion on the human spectrum, from obvious shock to like just complete devastation that my whole life had crumbled, to laughing a weird amount hours after my favorite human being in the world dies, because I live with a person who has dementia, and she kept trying to use the restroom that my dad died in a minute ago. And you know what? The comic relief, not at the moment, maybe a little few days after, but I am so grateful. My mom was, whether she knew it or not, able to effectively distract me in the darkest days of my life. And that feeling is kind of what propelled me in my caregiver experience. I kind of just held on to that positive, carefree, nothing matters attitude, because being a dementia caregiver is a really sad experience. It is inherently depressing. It's violent. It's loud. It's annoying. It's a lot of really bad things that people won't initially tell you about. We will.
We will talk about all of it.
I found that the only way to deal with all of those feelings and emotions was to just smile through it and just kind of lean into my mom's dementia and just let us have fun together and just create our own world that only makes sense to us, and I'm sure would make sense to the people listening to this podcast. And yeah, so we've just been fucking around and laughing for 2 years, and here we are.
You know, it's interesting because I always say that you have a level of positivity that is like so impressive. The way that you can flip a situation, it amazes me, because I spent the first year so sad and so mad that I had to leave New York, and then I come home, and like my home life was a complete mess because my mom had it, but then my grandmother had it also. And they had trauma, like the years of trauma that has been built up between my grandmother and her daughter. Like it was just all flown
3
out.
generations of women and 2 brain diseases did not sound like a good equation.
But like seeing how you were put in like high stakes, incredibly high. The stakes were the highest. I don't know if there's any higher, right?
They were high.
They were pretty high. And still like later able to find those moments that make it light somewhat. Like that's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. And honestly, I commend myself on that too, because it's more impressive if you knew how impatient I was before this. It took so much mental training to get to that point. And honestly, that's kind of why, that's one of the reasons why I love caregivers more than any other group of people out there. It's crazy, the resilience that we're able to have. Like I've never met a caregiver who did not wildly impress me with like their mental strength, their emotional strength, their physical strength. Because I'm lifting a 115-pound lady around all day. I don't know what y'all are doing.
No, absolutely. Like people say like, you're so patient. I could never be that. And I'm like, if you're put in a situation too, you will figure it out. And that's why I love us, because like we're put in that situation
and then figured it out.
Yeah. So I started taking care of my mom in 2016. My grandmother passed in 2017, and it was just me and her for some time. We're going to get more into details about that further on in the podcast. But once 2020 happened, we were all, sitting home alone. And that is actually when my mom's care became 24/7. she ended up losing so many skills so quickly because she just wasn't socializing as much. And that was when I decided to start making YouTube videos with her. And that is kind of where our like social media life started, because I was like, well, we're home alone and we're just kind of hanging out. Let's like hang out on, And so that video did pretty well. And I was like, oh, people like watching stories of my mom and I. And then I was later suggested to start a TikTok. And I was like, ugh, all these social media apps, like now I have to start a whole new one. Like I don't feel like it. Mind you, TikTok is my like favorite app now.
Oh yeah, no.
I'm always on it. And so I ended up starting a TikTok, and we gradually got bigger, slowly. And then one day I posted this one video where my mom was looking at a photo of me, and she looked at herself and she said, "That's me." And I was like, "Yeah." And then she looked at me as a baby and said, "That's my mom." And I was like, "That's me. And yes, I am your mom." And something that happens with people with dementia is that they sometimes tend to call the person that cares for them mom. But that video, it was a perfect representation of the name mom of my mom. And it was her like looking at me and saying, "That's my mom." And that video like blew us up.
And she's not gonna say it, so I'm just gonna say it for her. Jacquelyn's like really famous, you guys. I never know what to call our kind. I always say dementia influencer because it just sounds kind of weird and funny to me. But she's a really famous dementia influencer. We became friends because I was obsessed with her, and I think that was actually the first video of yours that I saw when I was slowly starting off on TikTok. And the way you connected with your mom and the way you were, I remember, this is going to be so romantic, but I remember the first video of yours that made me fall in love with you guys. You guys were both dancing to Stevie Wonder's Sir Duke. Yeah. Which is like me and my mom's jam. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's our song too. Yeah. Oh, they dance like us. And I was like, one day I'm gonna make her be friends with me in real life. And I'm
so glad that we're here now.
But yeah, no, I just like I've the same way you're impressed with my positivity, I'm also impressed with your ability to help your mom be active. Like every time I'd watch one of your videos, you guys were always moving, whether it was you leading or her leading. There was always an effort to make sure your mom was doing something. And I was like, okay, that's the kind of person, the kind of caregiver person I want to surround myself with, because she knows what she's doing.
I so appreciate that. And, it's crazy because I got so much joy out of sharing that if I could do it all over again, I totally would.
Yes, that was the most unexpected gem that came from my experience sharing videos of me and my mom. I did not anticipate just the soul satisfaction that I would get from just showing people how I do, how we do things, And it's just like you kind of, the same with you, like you kind of accidentally build a community of like super amazing, beautiful caregivers. And then like one day I just looked around and I was like, oh, I know a lot of incredible people because of my stupid little TikTok. That's really cool.
What's like really cool about it is it helps you find like-minded people, which I'm 100% about. And it just happened at a time when it was really needed.
When you really needed some friends.
Yeah.
I think beginning of 2020, we all needed friends.
We all needed something.
Yeah. And I think for me, becoming friends with a caregiver is such a different, more special experience than making any other friendship. Because there's just something about every caregiver. We all experience the same isolation, the same we're all so different, but we all have such similar experiences that when we're able to connect with each other, even if it's a total stranger, you somehow know every struggle they have. And it's just like a really intensely beautiful connection.
Having someone be able to validate where you are, it's imperative, and it makes you feel good, and it makes you feel seen also. Like there's so many young people who are like, I thought I was the only one, and I'm here to say
it's
like, no.
Crazy. We all think that. And then you see a statistic that we're the ones mostly doing it now.
Exactly. There's
and
a
it's
lot
like,
of
oh,
that.
wait, I'm actually not alone. There's like tens of millions of me. What?
It completely changes like your world view and also like who you see yourself as. Prior to starting Mom of My Mom, I just thought that like my life is ruined, it's over, like there's nothing that I can do about it. But then, starting something and then having more people see it and then affirm you, it kind of lets you know that there's more. There's
and that you are helping.
Yeah.
I think I don't think either of us ever expected to have like an impact on like many lives, but like the truth of the matter is, like, I know from the messages we get, we have had that impact on people's lives. And I think that is due to like the intensely strong connection that caregivers are just able to instantly make with each other, because we get each other, we get our struggles.
Exactly. And look, all I can say is that if you're a caregiver and you're listening, there are so many pages online where you can find other people who are doing the exact same thing. So yes, like follow this podcast, make sure you subscribe, hear us out every time a new episode, but also go on TikTok and
find your tribe.
Like find people that are doing what you are, because when you see other people wake up every day, make someone food and care for someone else, it just makes you feel like your work is that much more important too. And so to round up that story, Mom of My Mom currently has about 800,000 people that follow across TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. But my mom passed suddenly and unexpectedly. And like when a death like that happens, it just like shakes you, right? But she passed March 6th. And now my goal is to talk about the entire process, because I have now gone through it from step 1 to step 1 million.
You've done the whole journey. You are doing the whole journey. And something to add, as I think we can both agree, a caregiver's journey is never over. I think once you become a caregiver, I think we can both agree it's part of your identity.
It's inside of you.
It's inside of you. You can't not care.
Absolutely, it is. Where are you at with your mom right now, Robin?
When people ask me how she is, I always say she's great, as far as I'm concerned, or all things considered, because she is great, all things considered. Yes, she has a fatal, debilitating brain disease. But you know what? Her cholesterol is good. She's pre-diabetic, not diabetic, has been for several years.
Yes.
You know, good heartbeat, good oxygen. Doesn't walk very well, but you know what? I think when you take care of someone who is dying, you learn very quickly to be grateful for the little successes that they have along the way. So my mom's doing great.
What's so interesting about, we can go into a whole conversation about
wait, we got 6 minutes left.
We don't have the time. I'm sorry. Okay. But this is sort of an example of what it's going to be like hanging out with Erica and I. So we just wanted to make sure that you guys had a full understanding of who we are and the care that we give and gave. And that we're here to be that supportive piece of the puzzle for you all also.
If you want to follow me, I am at Badass Caregiver on all my socials.
And I am at Mom of My Mom on every social. And you can also hit up momofmymom.com.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.